Good morning, Dan and Amy. We've talked quite a bit about the secondary effects of the policy decisions around COVID-19, the shutdowns specifically. So the the illness, the death, the lives versus lives calculation.
Versus livelihood, yeah.
Oh, no, not versus livelihood. Lives versus lives. Lives of people who get infected with COVID 19 versus the lives of people who suffer from depression, who turn to alcohol, the deaths of despair projections based on the lockdown,
Oh,
understanding how people react, some percentage of people react when they lose their livelihood, how that has an impact on their physical health and the choices they make.
they're even saying on CNN, of all places, that 1 million extra deaths are going to come from disease and addictions.
Well,
A
it's
nationwide 1 million.
so there's deaths of despair, and then there's also the people that are fear-addled and thus aren't going to the hospital to get the checkups they need, to get the treatments they need.
Screenings that they need.
The period where you had quote-unquote elective procedures sidelined because it was all hands on deck for COVID-19. So it's a much more complicated picture than the press corps presents it to be, of course. And then within specific cohorts, our next guests are focused specifically on military families and the impact that the virus and our response to the virus is having on military families, or at least the threat that our response poses to military families, perhaps disproportionately, as we understand those who served our country have heightened incidences of despair or illnesses, challenges associated with despair. Evan Owens is a co-founder and executive director of Reboot Recovery. Adam Davis is a former law enforcement officer and speaker for Reboot Recovery. And Evan and Adam join us now. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much.
So this piece that that Evan you penned with, I assume your wife, Dr. Jenny Owens, and that is about the clear and present threat to military families during the COVID-19 crisis. And you're not talking about the virus. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I say in the article, and I've said elsewhere, the greatest threat to a lot of veterans and even a lot of first responders during this time is not a virus. That's not the greatest. The greatest threat is often some form of self-destruction, as you alluded to. And a lot of times, routine for all of us is what keeps a lot of us from drifting back into the habits that maybe got us into a difficult situation in the first place, that regimented routine. But when that routine is tossed out the window, a lot of us find ourselves drifting back into those old destructive patterns. And that's really in the work that Reboot Recovery is doing, both with the first responder community, law enforcement, and as well as with the veteran community. Those are the things that we're focused on because that is truly, I believe, the greatest risk to these populations right now.
And what about like Alcoholics Anonymous? Because, the whole thing was limiting large gatherings, and people need groups like that, especially during stressful times.
Yeah, I mean, in general, right. I mean, right, we lean on one another for support, for accountability, whether that be from healing from trauma, dealing with addiction, or even maintaining a healthy relationship and marriage, right? We need good people around us to guide us, and without that, sometimes we can kind of all become adrift, and that's no different, and maybe even more so in people that have dealt with some difficult things. And for a lot of us, we can just sit with our thoughts, and it's okay. But for somebody who's got a lot of horrific thoughts due to their career, sitting with those things and letting them replay in their brain all day and night is not necessarily a good use of their energy and time.
And so that's where the focus on these specific families, military families, first responder families, comes in because of the heightened incidence of these, these potential pitfalls within those communities.
Yeah, and Adam on the call with me, I'm able to speak to this more, but even obviously with the increased tension between law enforcement community and general public, that's even adding more stress. And it seems like it's becoming harder and harder for people, especially law enforcement right now, to find safe places to process what they feel and what they think and kind of what they are going through. Yeah. It's becoming really hard to do that. And maybe, I don't know, maybe Adam can share more on that.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest things we talk to, I've traveled across the country talking to Americans who support law enforcement and they want to do something. And so we work to create a place for law enforcement to get help, navigate through the issues that they're dealing with. And we've also created a way for people to reach out to law enforcement and help them and show their support. But, having that place, having that community that backs them, because you want law enforcement. You don't want to defund law enforcement. You don't want to disband law enforcement. You need cops in your community. You need good cops, and we need good cops for the foreseeable future to fight against crime and violence in our community. So, but Evan, I'm sure, can tell you about a great program called Reboot Blue and what we're doing to reach cops and help address and hopefully head off increasing potential for suicides in the law enforcement community as trauma and as this prolonged.
Oh,
tell us about it.
Tell us about Reboot Blue.
Well, yeah, so we have first responder courses around the country that are free to first responders and their families to plug into. But also, if people go to rebootblue.com, we've got a book that actually Adam has written that's called Behind the Badge. It's an amazing book to help people kind of process what day in and day out, a daily guide. But all that being said is if people go to Reboot Blue right now, we're doing kind of a thing where we're trying to put Behind the Badge book in the hands of every first responder, every law enforcement officer in the country. There's about 800 to 900,000 of them. And right now we're just asking Americans, so many people I talk to, they say, man, we want to do something. We don't know what to do. This is an easy thing. They can go online. They can donate. Every $25 donation sends the book to a law enforcement person, puts it right in their hands. And so this is an easy thing you can do. $50 is 2 books, $75 is 3, right? So this is a very tangible thing as opposed, outrage is not a strategy for improving the situation. Supporting organizations like us and others who are doing work on the ground with veterans and first responders, that's a real strategy. That's actually working.
That's right.
And Adam, I wanted to ask you this because we have police officers, former officers on the show. Well, I shouldn't say rarely, but since this issue popped up about cops needing personal liability insurance, what is your response to that?
I never thought that a cop would need that. But in I mean, the way that things are going now, I think honestly, the city should provide that as a benefit, just like they do their health care, the medical coverage. It's provided a certain limited liability insurance there. I think, we've gotten to the point to where you don't know if your city's going to stand behind you. I think we've seen examples of that, and that's sad. That's the age we live in, where politics gets too involved in law enforcement, and that's what you see. But I don't think it's a bad idea.
When it comes to sort of the telltale signs that somebody is in need of help, what is it that people should be sort of on the lookout, family and friends should be on the lookout for with respect to maybe a family or member or a friend who's military or law enforcement?
So thank you for asking that question. If everybody knew the signs, we'd have a smaller problem. So thank you for that. I'd say the first is if there's been a sudden resurgence of addiction behaviors, that's a big one. If there's increased isolation, a person pulling away from others in their community, another big one that is oftentimes overlooked. A lot of times a trigger for suicidality is a broken relationship. There's a divorce, there's a separation, somebody leaves. Those are signs that we need to get closer to these folks. And then the other one that I would just say is if there's any form of self-neglect or self-harm or even threatening of self-harm or talking about it, those are not necessarily natural behaviors, and we want to get out ahead of those. And a great thing people can do, not everybody is a counselor, but everybody can kind of know, CPR, if you will. And if people do, they can just simply ask questions, make sure the person is doing all right. They can escort them to somebody who can help them and stay with them until they're safe, whether that's a hospital or whether that's going on a suicide hotline or even getting them registered. If it's less acute, getting them registered for a Reboot Recovery course online for free. There's all those options. But the important part, sometimes, that escorting piece is what's overlooked. It's sort of like, hey, he's in trouble or she's in trouble. Let's just call this number. But doing it with the person and guiding them with them is really, it's shown statistically to really reduce suicide completion.
But you do leave open the possibility, such as in my case, where the person engages in more social isolation and that actually makes them happier. They're actually enjoying being more isolated from humanity. And now they can, I'm just giving you my personal experience, just, the other side of this. And now I do engage in self-destructive behavior. It's called golf. But I'm not so sure. So there's that too. You just have to, the people that are the loners in the world. and they enjoy.
We don't have a group. We don't have a group for golf recovery. We haven't really gotten into that market.
You should.
But I appreciate your sacrifice, sir. I
thank you.
appreciate your
Well,
sacrifice.
you know, I don't like to throw the term hero around, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Evan Owens and Adam Davis. Evan Owens, co-founder and executive director of Reboot Recovery. Adam Davis, former law enforcement officer, speaker for Reboot Recovery. And for more information, including on their Reboot Blue program, the website, gentlemen, Reboot Recovery.
It's rebootblue.com. Rebootblue.com.
Rebootblue.com. Great. Evan Owens, Adam Davis, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. And they joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
You take for granted the doors and entryways you use every day to get in and out of your facility. They do their job and everything's fine until it isn't. Your commercial door is stuck and your work vehicles can't get out, costing your business big bucks. Or maybe you're facing a fine for fire doors not being up to code. Did you know fire doors need to be inspected annually? The Industrial Door Company will ensure you're compliant, maintain records, and maintain all your facility's doors so you're ready to do business. And as things get moving again, now is a great time to make sure your commercial doors are ready for the coming increase in use. Visit industrialdoor.com to see a full range of products and services. Stop losing big bucks because your commercial door is stuck. Call anytime, 847-258-5620. That's 847-258-5620. Their team will be there to get you back in business. Since 1982, the Industrial Door Company takes care of your doors so you can take care of business.
If your money is not earning at least 2.5% guaranteed as well as tax deferred, you need to call Professional Life and Casualty. Professional Life and Casualty is offering a 2.5% guaranteed APR on new funds deposited into your annuity, traditional IRA, or Roth IRA accounts. Rates subject to change. Please call to confirm. With Professional Life and Casualty, you pay no surrender charges, no administrative fees, and no withdrawal fees. Professional Life and Casualty has been providing peace of mind insurance and annuity products for over 60 years. Visit plcinsurance.com. They'll send you a free guide to tax-deferred, no-fee annuities. Learn about the 2.5% guaranteed APR return on annuity, traditional IRA, or Roth IRAs with no surrender charges, no administrative fees, and no withdrawal fees, plus peace of mind. Only from Professional Life and Casualty. Call 1-800-651-1800. That's 1-800-651-1800 or online at plcinsurance.com.